there, writers and muse daters. Here I am this evening with Puppy Dog Tales and also Lauren Barker. She and I were just having an amazing session talking about her novel, and we got so excited collectively that we thought we would share this with you, because I think this is going to be some really helpful information about how to fall in love with your writing again. There are so many writers out there who get into this deep valley, writer's block. They kind of throw their writing aside and never pick it up again. And we don't want that to happen for you. So I brought Lauren in to talk about her journey as a writer and how that's come together. So welcome, Lauren. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And tell us a little bit about where you started this journey, way back when you and I had a telephone call a couple of months ago. What was life like for you back then?
So I've got this book that I've been working on for years and years and years now. And I was really getting frustrated with not knowing how to finish it, how to get it where I wanted it to be. And with my writing, I found that every time I'd start to get momentum and get something written, I'd spend so much time like circling back and nitpicking at it and chewing at these, what I thought were plot holes, and just worrying myself to death trying to figure out how to go around my elbow to get to my nose and so on and so forth. That was really just getting in my own way and getting really frustrated doing so.
Got it. And how did you feel about your writing during that time?
Frustrated, happy to write, but frustrated by my writing, very afraid of my writing at times. Like I would be like, okay, I need to go and sit down and write. But then when I'd sit down and write it, just like I wouldn't know what to write. And I'd get so frustrated that I'd get up, and I'd do the dishes or I'd go sweep the floor or do a million different things, because actually sitting down and writing it scared me so much that got in the way too.
Got it. What felt scary to you?
Just not knowing what to do, feeling like I was sort of walking down a dark hallway without a flashlight.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that I had this story that I wanted to tell really, really badly, but not knowing how to tell it. And then the fear of what if I do it wrong?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet a lot of people can relate to that one.
Yeah.
And you and I have known each other for I think about 3 years. You saw me speak at the Writers Digest conference a couple of years ago. And you're a resourceful person. You had tried some different solutions to get yourself out of that hole. What were some of the things that you tried?
All the things. I've read a zillion different books like on writing, not that one specifically, because I know that's Stephen King's On Writing, but I have read that one, but I've read a million others too. I've read all the articles that I could spare up online. I even did another writing program for several months that I thought was going to be a huge answer for me, and just wasn't. I'm not going to say that I didn't get anything out of all of those things, but none of them did for me what has happened for me in the writing gym.
Interesting. Okay, so you're in this dark place, like without a flashlight in the hallway, and you had tried all of these things to get out, and then like you and I had a conversation. You've been in the writing gym for a couple of months. You're in the VIP program. What are some of the things that have happened for you over in the writing gym? Just walk people through who aren't in the writing gym. What did it look like for you when you came in? What were the things that we did together?
So the first module just really sort of sets the whole stage for what the experience is going to be like. You've got, you really walked me through the process of what to expect, how I was going to be meeting with you and when I was going to be meeting with you, and the same with Gretchen, that I'd have my one-on-one like mindset meetings with, which those have been extremely helpful too. And just like a kind of an outline of what sort of things we were going to be getting into as I progressed through the other modules. That gave me a really good launching point to know what I was looking at. And then, so like progressing through the weeks, I would have those weekly meetings with Gretchen and weekly meetings with you, and then sometimes salons, which I love, and working through like a new module each week, and each one kind of built on itself so that you're never just like dumped into something where you're like, oh, I don't know what this is. Like it all builds on a way that makes really perfect sense.
That's great. And for those people who haven't participated in a salon, and we do have open salons, we've got one coming up. So people who aren't in the writing gym can try it out. But what is Salon, and why do you love it?
So Salon is where a bunch of writers get together that are part of the writing gym. And we meet for about an hour usually with a prompt and 20 minutes to write, which sounds insanely tiny. And the first time that I did a salon, and I think that this is true for most of us in the writing gym, we're like, you're kidding, right? Like 20 minutes. But the rule is that you just write for that whole 20 minutes and you try not to let the inner critic get in the way, which my inner critic is like this bulked up Arnold Schwarzenegger type thing. So, salons were really, really helpful in teaching me how to let that go and just breathe. And then when you're done with this crazy like 20-minute writing session, everybody gets feedback like immediately. And the feedback is very positively focused so that you learn how to hone in on your strengths and the things that are really good about your writing instead of just beating yourself over the head with what was negative or what could be improved. For me, that really helps unlock creativity.
So maybe you can help me out, because I have a really hard time explaining to people, you know, you've done writing groups before, and some of the elements are similar to those writing groups. But, you know, you've had some amazing experiences in Salon, some amazing takeaways. You talked about the way that you've grown as a writer just in one short hour. You know, if you were going to explain to someone, you know, this is why Salon is so powerful, this is how it's changed my life, help me out. What words would you use?
The encouragement is huge. The lack of I shouldn't say lack of, the way that it makes you focus just on writing instead of worrying to death over your writing is huge. And so what you really get out of it, I think, is learning how to focus on your writing in a really positive way that allows your mind to like free itself into the creative realm.
That's really powerful. Okay, I'm gonna hang on to that. All right, so you were in the writing gym. We were talking about the things that you were doing. So, you know, the modules were helpful. It was really clear what the path was. You were meeting with me. You were meeting with a personal trainer whose name is Gretchen. There are the salons. Of course, there's the group and the larger community. Let's talk a little bit about that because we didn't mention it. You know, you guys who are in the writing gym, you've got your own Facebook group. You've got your own meetings. You're meeting together. What has that community experience been like for you?
That's been really important for me as well, not least because I can see the people that are further down this track than me and see that like it's working for them and they're having successes. And in moments where I've been like, oh, dear Lord, what on earth? Like, I'm so terrified. That's been really reassuring to see them and to be like, okay, if they can do it, like maybe that means that I can do it too. And then on top of that, I mean, they're all wonderful, amazing people. And I love, one of the other things that I love so much about Salon is getting to see all like the way that they write, because not only do you get your own writing highlighted and learn what you're doing, but you get to see what other people are doing well. And I feel like there's a huge takeaway from that to say, you know, oh, well, they did this really well and this is why it worked. That's another thing I left out about Salon. There's a lot of like analysis as to why this makes good writing and so on and so forth. So that's a huge learning experience. And then they're all just really sweet people. So there's that sense of encouragement, that sense of community that you get just from being in the writing gym to feel like you're not going at it alone.
Absolutely. That's really important because we write alone. Yeah. Okay, so you started out at the beginning. I asked you, you know, where were you before the writing gym? Tell us a little bit about where you are now, you know, 2 months in, having gone through this process of writing your novel.
So I feel like completely, almost thoroughly revolutionized as a writer. Like the way that I'm writing is so totally different. Before, like I said, I was getting very bogged down in like minutia and kind of sometimes losing sight of the whole story, worrying about these little details. And now I find that I'm writing so much more and enjoying it, which is the key thing for me. Like instead of falling against that big fat wall of dread that's like would make me procrastinate and do the dishes and a million other things, now when I sit down to write, I'm excited about it. And I've found that like I'm able to let my mind like just sort of melt into the writing. And it's so much more creative when I do. learning to let go of all of the things that were stopping me from writing before. I don't really know how to say it. Not only are they no longer stopping me from writing, but now that I've gotten rid of them, it's just like opening up a dam.
Wow. Wow. And, I think that this is an important distinction, because when you came to me, you called yourself an outliner. And, I want people to understand a little bit about the way that the writing gym works, because anybody who has watched 3 of my videos knows that I'm more of a pantser when I'm writing fiction and an outliner when I write nonfiction. But what was that experience like? Like, did I get out my rolling pin and beat you over the head and say, this is how you will write? No. So what happened for you that you were able to explore and find your best writer?
It has all been, I think, just very gentle encouragement, and never once telling me that I couldn't or shouldn't be an outliner. And I still am. Like, I'm one of those that I think, now that I'm finding my groove as a writer, is always going to be both. And that's always been highlighted as a good thing. And it's always been gentle encouragement at every step, rather than, none of that.
Yeah, well, and that just in response to that, for myself, that's really important for me as a philosophy, right? You need to find your best writer. Where do you need to outline? And I don't know about your experience, Lauren. We haven't talked a lot about this, as far as emotional baggage from the past, but certainly in my writing life, there were people who came in, professors or whatever, who said, no, that's not the right way to write. You have to do it this way. So, how did you come to that in the writing gym? Like, what was that experience like for you?
Ask me that question a different way. I'm not sure.
Well, coming to a point where you sort of thought you were this writer, and then it shifted for you a little bit over time.
So it's actually, I have found that whole process very surprising, because I came into this really, really excited, really, really hopeful. And then also just as part of a state of my natural being, a little bit skeptical of I will never be a pantser. It's impossible that I'll ever have any facet of, pantsing in my writing whatsoever, because I'm an outliner, by God. And but like I said, there was also that hopefulness and that trust to say, I'm going to try this anyway, because I really think it could work. And so each time that I took a new step forward, it felt a little bit for me sort of stepping off of a cliff with a blindfold on, of what am I doing? Oh no. But then each time that I thought I was going to fall and land splat on my face, I didn't. And at the risk of sounding really, really corny, I kind of felt like I grew wings a little bit and was able to step off the cliff and take off in my writing, rather than go splat like I was afraid I was going to.
That's wonderful. And when, if you think back, this might be a little difficult, but when you think back to right before you joined, when we had that initial call and I invited you to join the writing gym, and you thought about what were my expectations of that? How is the writing gym matched up to what those expectations were?
It's far exceeded them. I knew that I was going to be working with some great people when I signed up for the writing gym. That's what brought me here in the first place. And I did expect that it would help me find ways to increase my productivity, and things like that, and help me kind of know what to aim for in the market. I didn't realize it was going to so thoroughly revolutionize the way that I write, and so much that I don't want to say that I didn't love writing already. Obviously I did, or I wouldn't have been here, but it has made it so much more enjoyable to write. And I didn't expect that. I thought that writing is it's always scary, and it's always going to be scary. And I had no idea that this would help me find a way to get really, truly excited about it again.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And thinking about the timing, right? We've already said you and I had met at the Writer's Digest conference when I was speaking there. And way back then, we talked about working together, and you weren't ready, and you kind of hemmed and hawed, and you tried some other things, and you kind of had this circuitous path, and you came back and have now discovered the power of that. Talk a little bit about that journey and where you are with that.
So I think at that point, when I was at that conference, I still had the idea that, well, I was still learning a lot about writing. And so I hadn't quite come around to realizing what a novel is really supposed to look like. And I kind of thought I could go at it on my own. Looking back at that now, I want to laugh a little bit. Foolish child. But, and I thought, you know, that as I going along this path, and I'm thinking I can do this totally by myself, and then would hit a stumbling block and be like, okay, maybe I need a little help. You know, so I'd look up an article online and be like, okay, now I've got it, you know, and so on and so forth, and kept hitting bigger and bigger roadblocks. And I mean, in a lot of ways, I was progressing as a writer, but in a lot of ways too, I was really tangling myself up. The more I looked for advice here and advice there, you get a lot of conflicting advice, and you go, well, wait, which one is right? And then you get feedback from different people that, again, is conflicting. And I found that in a lot of ways, it just made me more confused, which is ironic because I'm out there looking for help, hoping to progress, and really just tangling myself up in the mire.
So that being said, you know, if there were someone right now who is kind of on the fence, like, I'm not sure, like, should I do this other thing, or should I think about the writing gym? What would you say to them?
Do the writing gym now. If I could go back and talk to myself from like when I first met you, I'd probably be so much further along than I am now, and would have saved myself so much frustration and so much wasted time, and honestly wasted money too, because not all of those other things that I tried were free. And this has been by far, I mean, like by far the most productive, most helpful writing program, resource, whatever that I've ever used. And I wish that I'd started it years ago.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing your journey with us, Lauren. Any last words of advice for those writers out there who might feel discouraged or aren't in love with their writing right now?
Well, number one, talk to Annalisa because that's done wonders for me. And then just don't give up. Like, you love writing because you love writing, and don't let all of the conflicting advice and the bad feedback and the scary things take that away from you.
Awesome advice. Well, thank you, Lauren, for sharing that with the members of Write to Publish. We appreciate you, and we love having you in the writing gym.
Thank you. I love
Happy
being
writing.
here. Thanks.